Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome wherever you're joining us from. What an amazing event. I want to thank the organizers for inviting my colleague and me to this wonderful conference. I am Maria Brindlmayer. Until recently, I've been a senior knowledge management specialist for a USAID-funded project called Youth Power Learning and Youth Power 2 Learning and Evaluation. And I'm here with my colleague, Abolaji or BJ.
Yes, hi everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Again, I'm Abolaji Omitogun. I'm an MBA student at American University. I've also been with the Youth Lead Youth Power Project, and I'm also an Atlas Core Fellow here in the US.
Great. So our topic today is empowering youth voices, which we believe is really important for strengthening youth impact. And I'm really a firm believer in empowering youth and their voices. And we will start with a short topic about positive youth development. So positive youth development is the principle that was underlying the Youth Power Project. And I think it's a really important component of any youth project and program. It says that successful youth programs should include and enable youth that have assets. So making sure that youth have the necessary resources and skills, and that includes financial resources. Youth should also have agency, so the ability to employ those assets successfully. And youth should be able to contribute to their communities, to their environment, and implement the passions that they are wanting to pursue. And last but not least, they should be surrounded by an enabling environment. So these four components, I think, should be part of any positive or any youth development program. And you can see that both assets and agency, as well as contribution, very much relate to enabling the voices of youth. So I want to start with an example of what I consider a really successful youth center that implemented these principles really successfully. It's Coma Learning Center is a project in Uganda, and we will share the slides that we are presenting today. And there are lots of links to the videos. So they tracked their youth club for about a year and then filmed short videos about different topics that were of interest to them. So it was all youth-led. It was funded by a Youth Power grant, and they explored recruitment for a club. They explored topics about gender and age issues. They explored topics about decision-making within their club. And so I think a really, really successful examples of how much a youth club can actually contribute because the story that they're telling about the impact that they have had in their community is just really inspiring. There are actually lots of different roles that youth can take and where youth can take leadership and have their voices heard. And so Vijay and I will run through a few of those examples that include, youth being role models and mentors, youth making the voices heard as researchers, youth becoming champions for specific causes, and youth being experts in particular areas.
All right. So talking about youth being role models and mentors, of course, Youth Lead provides great opportunities for young change makers like yourself to meet and connect with the other young change makers who are role models. I'd like to set an example who is Shakira Chonara from South Africa. Shakira was listed as one of the 100 most influential young Africans in I think 2019, 2020. She's also served with the African Union Youth Council, where she particularly was very vocal as regards young people getting involved in policy making with African Union, and then also focusing on health policy and reproductive health initiatives the African Union. So Shakira is definitely one of the such young change makers who also has gone far enough to be credible young change mentors. And of course, obviously, you can also connect with other people from other networks, even beyond just the Youth Lead network itself. And then, obviously, also connecting with the other youth members from the World Federation of Youth Club itself.
Yeah, so throughout our presentation, we'll primarily focus on youth power examples, but there are many other examples out there, but we just want to highlight some of these. So the next topic is researchers, and the one example that I wanted to highlight is the Girls Research and Learning Power Project in Jordan, where the topic was about making the city safer for girls. And the project engaged girls as actually being the researchers in the project, which was a real challenge. It was difficult to convince the girls to join. And then it was really important to involve the parents and the whole family and get permission for the girls to do that research. And then the girls were trained and did the interviews, they did the whole research, they did the analysis. And then they presented the results, and you can actually see the videos when they are presenting the results. And it's just so amazing to see how empowered they are. And when they also presented at the end that they felt much more empowered within their community, but also within their families.
So talking about, from research and then using some of those research to actually champion a cause. I think, one of a very good example is one of our youth lead ambassadors, Ebenezer, who is directly on the video there. Ebenezer is a founder of policyshapers.com. He's using his voice to rally about 75K votes to reform the IELTS policy for Anglophone Africa. Basically, is fighting injustice in the sense that many African countries do have to take an English test, whereas growing up in African countries, most of especially in the Anglophone African countries, where the English is taught as a first language, and then having to take some of these tests that expires in just 2 years. So he's been using his voice to advocate for change in this policy. And then I think today he's had over 72,000 votes out of 75,000 change.org votes so far. And this is just an ambassador who is definitely using research, for example, to really champion causes that he really cares about. And there are many more of young change makers like this on the platform, and that you'd have definitely engaged. You definitely meet if you engage with the platform itself.
Great, yeah. So definitely lots of young people that are passionate and really raising their voices. And as another example, we wanted to talk about youth also being experts. So that's very often, or not very often, something that one talks about, to see youth as real experts. But these are some examples of where youth have really become experts. So the first example is the young man on the left, who is the monitoring and evaluation specialist for a youth project in El Salvador. So he joined the project to lead the monitoring and evaluation for the project, and he has really impacted the project through his leadership throughout the whole course of the project, and has had an amazing impact. The example on the right is the winner of a youth lead contest, which was a video contest. And the young man that produced the winning video was a real expert in video production, and his expertise was recognized when we later organized a big conference that was USAID funded, and where he was asked to produce the main video for that event. So really important to think of different ways in which youth can increase their voices and be heard. But also important to be really aware of the local context and the barriers that you may all be encountering. We're aware that that definitely traditional power structures that are in place that may make it difficult. There's often a lack of trust vis-a-vis youth. There may also be a lack of information about opportunities or a lack of skills, or at least a considered lack of skills. And then not always having access to resources or funding, or different conditions about gender inequality, or a lack of clarity about roles. So definitely a range of different barriers that should not be underestimated when implementing youth programs, youth clubs, and empowering youth. So I would like to hand it over to Vijay to tell us a little bit about his experience in overcoming barriers to making youth voices heard.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. I think it's definitely a very good, interesting question. But I think first of all is, it's important for youth to be educated and informed. And I say this because I believe that people will only often, pay attention to, to folks who are educated and, whose opinions are well informed, really. So I think it's very important to, again, be educated and informed. I think it's also important for youth to be able to leverage their platforms. So be it social media, maybe using tools like LinkedIn, Twitter, or Instagram, or even using your content creation platforms like Medium, to be able to blog stuff that you're particularly passionate about. In addition to that, I would say that it's important for youth to venture out and seek opportunities. This could involve, for example, starting your own startup company. I co-founded a online cake delivery service with a friend of mine back in Nigeria, and then today we're employing about seven young youth. I feel about 80% of our staff is currently female, and also trying to ensure that we are contributing to economic development for youth themselves in that country. I think also it's important for young change makers or youth generally to network meaningfully and positively. So here's the intention of networking with a purpose. Really, sometimes it's not just about what others can do for you, but then it's really what you can also do for others. So again, network with meaningfully and with a purpose itself. And then lastly, it's just about taking calculated risk. Starting a business isn't just something easy. If you're going to travel from a country to a new country, I think also looking at some of the consequences or the risk that comes with taking some of these decisions itself. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Great. Yeah, I've observed some of the things that you have undertaken, and it's definitely been very impressive on how you've overcome several obstacles and become successful. So knowing that it's not always easy, we wanted to show some of the resources that you all can use in your different projects, in your clubs, in your activities, and that you may find useful. So we talked about examples, role models, looking for peer networks. And so with regard to role models, one of the suggestions is to look at projects, for example, on youthlead.org, but also many other places where you can find youth-led projects. They can provide great inspiration, great examples, and also it will be good to look at what they have done, how they have been successful, and perhaps even reach out to the young people that are leading these projects. Another useful resource is on youthlead.org, the starter kits. As the word says, they are starter kits for people that want to be active in these areas. So for example, if you want to be a social entrepreneur, there is a toolkit that talks about or that provides a range of different resources that can help you get started, or to start a kit on youth in advocacy, one on civic engagement, on networking, one particular about a specific one on youth empowerment, one on leadership development, safe spaces, mental health, and these are just some examples. So there are a lot of resources out there that if you would like to have your voices heard, would like to start some projects, these are just some examples of resources that can help you get started.
And in addition to those resources that Maria already highlighted, I think it's my favorite part of the Youth Lead platform, being able to source funding opportunities, either be it grants, opportunities, fellowship, internships, or other competitions, for example, that you can also participate in. So definitely check out some of these resource pages. Again, this is my favorite part of the platform, being able to access some of those funding opportunities that are out there before the deadlines. And also, yeah, Maria. And then, of course, in addition to that, also is the mentorship toolkit on the platform. Basically, this helps you to reach out to young change makers like yourself, who are who could be potential mentors for yourself. Being able to find those mentors who are working in your space on the sector they're particularly passionate about, or being able to engage with on some of the mentorship programs that Youth Lead itself also offers. So again, explore these pages to connect with young change makers around the world in terms of mentorship, either for funding opportunities or get inspiration through mentors who can guide you through some of these applications that you'll be going through or be applying for.
Yes, great. Thank you, BJ. I believe mentoring and mentorship is really something that cannot be stressed enough. It is so important for youth and young change makers to find good mentors, but also these resources help you be a good mentee so that you really get the most out of your mentorship program if you participate in one. So I hope you will check out these resources. And another set of useful tools, and these ones are perhaps more for skill building purposes. So there is a toolkit for youth centers, which I think is particularly relevant for this audience. It has resources that talk about how do you get started with setting up a youth center? Where do you find the materials that you can offer as part of your youth center? How do you measure your success? So really at every step in your process, it can provide some really great resources. Another skill building toolkit is the one about youth engagement and monitoring and evaluation. I mentioned the example of the young man in El Salvador. And so this toolkit can really help if you want to get more involved in monitoring and evaluation. And it's particularly focused on how youth can get involved in that area and to make sure that the resources are there. And then this is just a list, as I mentioned earlier, we will share the slides with all of you so you can check out all the links. There is a range of different resources, from how do you make the pitch for having youth engaged and giving advice to the people that do engage you on how to do that successfully. So great different resources that you can all leverage. And so in summary, just kind of what do we suggest you should do as you're making your voices heard? We would suggest that you start by defining what meaningful youth empowerment looks like in your particular context and looking at the barriers that you might be encountering and how you can overcome them.
Yeah, and it's also important that you set your own objectives, right? What objectives do you have in terms of engaging young people or getting involved in this space?
Yes, and think about it not just kind of from a short-term perspective, but also look at the longer term. Some opportunities may require longer-term investment, so look at different ways in which you can get your voices heard.
And also, it's very important that you invest sufficient time, to develop yourself. Either, through opportunities for skill development or leadership development. It's very, very important.
Yes, and I've noticed, Abolaji, how you have been developing your own skills. So it's not just about going to school, going to university, but actually taking the initiative and just developing the skills in the area that you're interested in on your own time and with additional resources. And so obviously some of that may require funding. And so we talked about some places where you can find funding for your initiatives.
And also engage your parents, engage your families, engage your communities. Those are your immediate, your immediate stronghold that you have. So again, engage with those folks.
And last but not least, make sure that you track how you're doing, how you're progressing. Learn from your failures. Not every enterprise will be a success, but learn from those. And once you have successes, and it can be small successes, large successes, share your successes. It's really important as you're building your brand to share your successes on social media, in your community. And we hope that you will let us hear your voices. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.